Hello viewers and listeners, my name is Jere Bajo. I'm here to present a lesson on Social and Environmental Studies, SES. The word SES means Social and Environmental Studies at the upper basic level. Now let's look at the introduction. Social and Environmental Studies. This is the study of people and the environment. It might also be defined as the study of man and his environment. Our environment is also called the surrounding. This is where we live. And in this environment or this surrounding, there are a lot of things that are in this environment. These things are used by man. In a nutshell, man interacts with these things. One of those things in our environment includes the land, air, water, plants, animals, etc. and etc. Now, if you look at these things mentioned, that is land, air, water, plants, animals, all these things are used by man in one way or the other. Now, the study of social and environmental studies involves other subjects as well, which includes geography, where you talk about the landscape of the country, and even beyond. You also have history, where you deal with the important past events. You also have government, which is a subject taught in the senior secondary schools. Now let's have a close look at the picture. Now there are 4 pictures here. One is the environment, where you have trees. You also have streams. The other picture, you have a man sitting down with his kora. The third picture, you have an animal, which is a monkey. And the fourth picture as well, you have the stream there, and you also have the vegetation or the land cover. Now, if you look at those pictures or think about those pictures, you'll come to realize that man uses these things in the environment. That is the water, the land, the trees, and the animals. Let's look at some of the uses of the land. Man uses land for what? Agriculture. That is growing of crops and even rearing of animals on this piece of land. He also uses the land for construction of structures. That is houses. And remember, our schools are even built on land. Now, the trees or the plants are also very useful to man. The trees are used for furniture, which we are using in our classrooms, our tables and benches. The trees are also used for construction of our houses, roofing. They are also used for providing fuel wood, that is firewood or charcoal. Now the animals, on the other hand, are used by man or are used by people. Some of these animals serve as a source of food to us. That is, we kill and eat them. Example, you have goat, sheep, cow, and some of them also provide food or as a source of food. That is, we get milk from the cow, while other animals help us in our farming activities, such as donkey, horse, and even the bull. Now, the water also is used by man because all the activities of our lives cannot go in the absence of water. We drink water, we use it for other domestic purposes, cooking. Good. Now let's look at the other components of social and environmental studies. As I said earlier on, SES, or Social and Environmental Studies, have other subject components. One of them is history, which we are going to look at now. History. What is history? This is the study of important past events. That is, things that has happened in the past. It can also be defined as the records of important events that happened in the past. There are a lot of things that happened in the past which we were not present at that time. How do we come to know that? By studying history. In the study of history, we come in contact with some of those information. I gave you an example. The Gambia gained her independence in 18 February 1965. Right. This time, most of us did not witness it. But how do we come to know it? It is by history. By reading the history of this country, especially the political history of the Gambia, there we were able to know when did the Gambia becomes independent. Good. The study of history is important because it encourages tolerance. By knowing your past, you tend to tolerate things and also appreciate it. There, it also helps you to prepare or go about with your present and the future. It also makes one to have a love for his country. How? Because it makes you to know the history of your country, appreciate it, and you tend to love it. And it also promotes logical reasoning, that is thinking. You think logically. Now, history is divided into different components. That is types of history. Types of history. The number one type of history is oral history. This is also referred to as oral tradition. I repeat, the number one type of history is oral history. This is also referred to as oral tradition. What is oral tradition? This is the narration of history verbally by elders and praise singers. These elders, some of them could be our grandparents, who will narrate history to us, who will tell us the important happenings that happened in the past to the younger generation. The praise singers, locally called Jali in Mandinka, Gewel in Wolof, and Gaulo in Fula, are also very good agents of oral history, because these people narrate our past to us, especially when you come to family line, where they will tell you your roots. Who are your grandparents? Who are your great-grandparents? Where do they come from? What is their way of life? And what is their social status in the society? However, this source of history is mostly unreliable, simply because those telling the history might forget some important parts of it. They are human. The record is not written with them, some of them. They just explain it verbally, even whereas it's written with them, but when they are presenting, they are not using those materials. So they present verbally. So in that process, they may forget some important information, or some of the important parts might be left out. Or they may also make exaggerations. For example, if you are praising somebody and you want him to give you more money, because as the praise singers are narrating your history, people become very happy and give them something as a token of appreciation. Now, some may tend to exaggerate in order to get more money or recommendation from them. So this is why this form of history or this type of history, it might be unreliable, because the person might not be able to remember everything. Now let's look at the second source of history. The second source of history is written records. It is also referred to as written history. This is the most reliable form of history. Why do we say it is the most reliable form of history? Because it is found in writing. It is found in writing. This is written in books. It is also written in journals, magazines, and even in the archives. This is the place, that is the archive, is where records are kept. Are you following? And it can also be in other documents as well. It can be in other documents. If you look at in the olden days, before the invention of books, journals, and other things, people are writing history on bark of trees. They were also writing on animal skins. Now, why do we say that this form of history is most reliable? The word here is reliable, because once the facts are correctly written down, they do not change, even with time. That is, even when it takes a long period of time. The changes only happen unless if the author decides to make any changes. Now, the third source of history is ancient remains. Ancient remains or archaeology. Ancient means old, and remains means left over. Now, this is the study of things left on or inside the ground long ago. This is also a source of history. Not only what is written on the papers, what we are told can only be history, but even what is left behind, what is even in the ground. By digging the ground, you will be able to get some information about the past. The person studying ancient remains is called an archaeologist. Now, these archaeologists, they digged into the ground at different places where people used to live many years ago to know their history. I repeat, they dig into the ground at different places where people used to live many years ago and to know their history. When they come up with materials that were dug from those places, those materials can help to tell them about the social life of those people, the political life of those people, and even the economic life of the people who were living there. How do they know that? Now, during the process, if the materials that you come across, example, are simple farm tools, example, hoe, cutlass, or whatever, this will tell you that these people's economic life was farming. Farming was their economic life. In other words, it will tell you about their political life if you come across weapons that were used for empire expansion. For example, you come up with guns, old ones, swords. This will tell you that the people living here before in a long period of time were also engaged in empire building. And socially, you might also come up with materials that they were used in their social lives. Here are some of the some examples of terms used in the study of history. There are terms used in the study of history, and those terms are very, very important in the study of history. One of them is dates. Dates are used in the study of history. They cannot be left out. What are dates? Or what is the importance of dates? Dates enables us to know when an event happened. Because if we are to say, Gambia gained her independence, the other question will be when. We must come up with a date. The date will help us to know when did we gain our independence. The Gambia become republic, self-governed. When? The date must come. This is why dates enables us to know when an event happened. For example, Gambia became republic in 1970. So the date here helps you to know when did the Gambia become republic. Another one is the Gambia become independent in 18th February 1965. This also helps us to know when did the Gambia become independent. The other one is BC, which is also used in history. BC. This word means before Christ. Before Christ. For example, 500 BC is 500 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. 500 BC simply means 500 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. This is also used in the study of history. We also have another one called AD. AD. This is a Latin word that it stands for Anno Domini. Anno Domini. Anno Domini, which simply means the year of our Lords. The year of our Lords, or after the birth of Jesus Christ. After the birth of Jesus Christ. For example, when we are given AD 200, this tells us that 200 years after the birth of Jesus Christ. If you are given AD 400, this will also tell us 400 years after the birth of Jesus Christ. Another one is decades. Decades. This is also a term used in history. Decades is a term used in the study of history. It is a period of every 10 years. A period of every 10 years. For example, from 2000 to 2009, this is considered as a decade because it covers a period of 10 years. So every 10 years, we consider it to be a decade. The other one is century. Century is a period of 100 years. Every 100 years is considered as a century. That is, the first century starts from AD 0 to 99. This gives us the first century. Presently, we are in the 21st century. We are in the 21st century. And we will see a lot of examples, or we'll come up with other examples of centuries in a table which will come in the later part of the lesson. We also have millennium. Millennium, this is a period of 1,000 years. It is a period of 1,000 years. For example, from the year 2000 to the year 2999 will give us a period of 1,000 years, which is a millennium. Here is examples of periods and their corresponding centuries. That is from a particular year to a particular year, what is the century there? Let's look at it. From 2000 to 2099 will be 21st century, or is 21st century. That's what we are in. And 1900 to 1999, this period was the 20th century. This is called the 20th century. And from 1800 to 1899 is the period of the 19th century. 1800 to 1899 is the period of 19th century. The other one is 1700 to 1799 is the period of the 18th century. The 18th century. Likewise, 1600, that is 1600 to 1699 is also the 17th century. The 17th century starts from 1600 to 1699. Now, the 16th century starts from 1500 to 1599. 1599. The 15th century starts from 1400, that is 1400 to 1499. And 1300 to 1399 is the 14th centuries. Now, importance of studying social and environmental studies. One, it helps us to know our origin, because this tells us about our history. The history tells us where we come from. That is our origin. Number two, it helps us to know the environment in which we live. Since we say it is the study of man and his environment. There we study the environment. In the studying of the environment, we know the environment in which we live and how do we interact with this environment. And how does our interaction affect this environment. Number three, it also helps us to appreciate one another and live in peaceful life. Because by digging into our history, we will come to know that we are one. Number four, it helps us to know and appreciate the culture of our society. since the history deals with the culture, the way of life of people. Number 5, it helps us to learn good morals because it also carries moral lessons. That does for the lessons. And here is your assignment. Your assignment is, number 1, name any other 3 important things that are found in the environment in which we live. Remember, we've made mention of few things that are found in the environment earlier on. That is land, animals, plants. These are found in the environment. Now give another 3 important things that are found in the environment. Number 2, identify the centuries these periods or years belongs to. Identify the centuries or the periods these years belongs to. 1. 1200, that is 1200 to 1299. Which century does it belongs to? 2. 1100 to 1199. Which century does that belongs to? And 3. 1000 to 1099. Which century does that also belongs to? And that is the end of the lesson. I want to tell you that COVID-19 is real. So let's stay home and follow the precautionary measures put in place by the Ministry of Health. Thank you.